Hello, this is your host, Akhil Navdori, and welcome to another brand new episode of the TechoSpace podcast series. So, in this podcast episode, I'm very much honored and delighted to welcome our guest, Mr. Aaron Semf, who happens to be the next gen tech lead for the APJ region, the Asia Pacific region for APO, which is the AWS Amazon Web Services Partner Organizations. And really, I'm really happy to welcome him to this podcast episode. One thing that we both have in common, and it's not just one thing, it's like two things we have in common. Both of us are based in Melbourne, and both of us have been to Deakin. He's the Deakin University alumni, and I'm a current student pursuing my Master of Data Science at the moment. So, Aaron, it gives me a huge honor to welcome you to this podcast episode of mine. So, how are you doing? And Aaron, if I'm not wrong, there's something going on like Thursday night football. So, I mean, do you follow the AFL? I mean, on regular basis, or do you just take a break for that?
No, first of all, thank you, Akil, for having me. No, I don't follow AFL. I don't follow any sport for that matter. My sport interests are a little bit different than your average, I think, average person because I have a background in defense, and so I continue my marksmanship. So I do target shooting on the weekends, but outside of that, I don't
Oh,
don't follow really any sports.
I mean, that's a complete niche one, Aaron, for sure. So, Aaron, like, how did your weekend go on? So, well, I mean, what special, programs did you have during your previous weekend? So you could just, give me an elaboration on that, probably.
Yeah, no worries. So, for the weekend, it was unfortunately a little bit mixed with work and play. But for my middle child had a friend's birthday that we attended, so we did some what do you call it, mini golf. We had some fun on the mini golf range. But unfortunately, for the rest of the weekend, I was tied up writing agentic AI strategy for APJ. So we're still very much uh, in depth in discussion around how we go to market with agentic AI for AWS partners here in APJ.
Amazing, Aaron. So, Aaron, at the stroke of this hour, which is like 4:11 p.m., let's kick off with our podcast episode. All right. So, Aaron, I just wanted to, understand this. Like, just can you give me a deep insight about your passion towards, systems design, systems thinking, critical thinking, and the DevOps pipeline, which I'm really, keen to know about.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So this uh, how far do you want me to go back? So in terms of my passion comes from, um, I guess it's the accumulation of my experiences throughout my career. I've spent a good portion of my career working across the back end, working across distributed systems, and working across field systems. So distributed and embedded systems, more specifically. When I say field systems, so the likes of building out mobile data terminals for, say, like police vehicles or um, different industries requiring different types of communication and sensory, such as like weather systems in rural areas that communicate to back to base stations and stuff. So the experience throughout my career building a lot of the back end side as well as a lot of the embedded side has led me down a path which has made me have to dive deep, I guess you could say, into understanding things in consecutive circles going out in terms of the relationship of, what am I building? What is the environment that it's in? What is affecting that environment? What's the boundary of that environment? What are the things in the wider environment outside of that? What affect that environment? And so everything in terms of like even systems, when we talk about systems theory, not just computer systems, everything has an effect on something, right? It could be the people in the practice. It could be the environment, such as like the weather conditions and the like, especially for field systems. So if we're building computer systems in the field, then things like weather and wet conditions, dry conditions, all that sort of stuff have an effect on how robust a system needs to be, just for its like casing or for the type of field that we system that we deploy into the field. So this led me to diving deeper into systems thinking and understanding things more philosophically from a systems thinking point of view, which in turn leads into critical thinking. So while you're like thinking outwards in terms of what interactions do you have with your wider environment? What interactions does that environment have with its wider environment? What are other subsystems in your environment? it starts you down a path of critical thinking. So now looking inwards again and looking like going down, if we think about like root cause analysis and looking at what is the very root cause of a problem and how to solve it, we ask the 5 whys, why is this happening? And then we get the most relevant question to why it's happening at the top layer and dig down to why is that happening. And we keep going down, and on average, we get to about 5 layers deep until we realize, okay, the why that we're trying to solve up here is completely different to the why that we're trying to solve down here. And if we solve this why, it should affect everything, going back. So again, it's that systems thinking point of view, but it's going down into the domains within the system to understand, what's at the root, what's at the very minute or very macro or micro level within the systems. And so to your last question, in terms of the DevOps pipeline, when we think about, systems and the interrelation between systems, so the relationship between subsystems, a lot of the time DevOps is considered another system outside of, the system that we're deploying or outside of the solution we're trying to deploy. So a lot of what I've done over the past years is try to I guess enable people in their way of thinking that the DevOps pipeline is a part of your system. And as long as you're thinking of DevOps as a secondary system or another system that just interacts with the system you're deploying, you're always going to have a problem with obviously the not the deployment of, but the operational management of. So when things need to change, you're going to have to go back and make changes to your DevOps system as well that can adopt the changes of the application that you're trying to build or the system that you're trying to deploy. So when considering the DevOps pipeline, so your actual, if we're talking code and hardware, the CI/CD, the manufacturing pipeline, everything that goes towards deploying and managing a solution as being part of that system, then when you have things that need to change within the system, you're also considering the pipeline as part of that same system. So it's not an additional, there's changes that we need to push off to another system, so the DevOps team can go and make changes to affect our system. It's the DevOps team and the application team and the hardware team and everything that is involved in the deployment of a system is one system. It's just extending the boundary a little bit out to include the pipeline.
Got it. Aaron, for this. So now, Aaron, if I would just like to, understand this, like everyone, whenever they talk about DevOps, they just feel that, okay, DevOps is a methodology that's, binding the dev team and the operations team. Now, when we talk about the operations team, I totally understand. I'm pretty much acquainted with this one that, we have something called the deployment, the monitoring, the operation. So if I would just like to, ask you, since you happen to be the Amazon, DevOps guru, so do you think in DevOps, is there any other kind of module is going to come in the operations team, or is it just confined till there?
No,
Like
so
anything beyond operations?
So DevOps is much more than it's much more than a methodology, right? It's actually not a methodology. It's a framework, yes. It's more a culture or a way of working. So the idea is, I'm not going to go and recite the 3 foundational pillars of DevOps, but essentially, in short, it's about making things like breaking things down into more manageable pieces that can be pushed out faster, not pushing problems downstream. So taking ownership and fixing things as soon as that comes very much back to lean manufacturing and back in the days of Toyota and the like, where they have the end-to-end cord and make sure that they fix things in the factory before it pushes downstream. And then amplifying feedback loops. So as you're getting things out quickly, also getting the feedback back as quickly as possible. So it's not just a matter of building something big and deploying it. It's a matter of understanding what are all the different areas of feedback. And to your point, like, it's not just about operation, right? There are more factors. Obviously, there's the keyword that people use, DevSecOps, where they like to create another silo for security. I never use the term DevSecOps. I always say DevOps, because security should always be an integral part of what you do. So,
Exactly.
And again, in the ethos of DevOps, is breaking down silos, so bringing everyone together. So yeah, it does very much include, I've worked with organizations that include a portion of their finance department as a part of the DevOps team to understand the cost implementation, the cost implication of implementing systems, as well as operational monitoring and understanding different effects of cost optimization on the system, as well as if new things come up. So this is to the point around feedback mechanisms, right? One of the biggest things in systems thinking and DevOps, from a platforms and applications point of view, is the feedback mechanism. But what we use that for isn't just, oh, is it resilient? Is it running? Is it up? Yes, it is. Great. That's all we care about. No, what we care about is the emergent behaviors. So when we deploy something, it's not always going to work as per how we designed it, in terms of especially distributed systems and microservices environments where we have lots of moving parts all communicating with each other. Sometimes, and this is when we get into chaos engineering, but sometimes there are factors that we don't account for in our design. And so this comes all the way back to systems thinking. So we have systems archetypes, which talk about the different patterns of emergent behavior and then how to affect them. So one could be like now I'm forgetting my archetype names, but essentially the taking from the commons. All right, so one factor could be a huge amount of traffic, and then understanding that could be routed to one specific service, and that one specific service is then facilitating communication with other services. And the trigger here is the more traffic, and then that more traffic might slow things down as it's routing to other traffic, which then might set some rate limiting, which might slow down the traffic allowance that's coming in. And so the system comes slowing down to a halt because it's telling the rate limiter to stop allowing connections through, because it can only handle so many connections. So that's a systems archetype. How do we solve that? Well, simple things in terms of computer systems. We look at load balancing across multiple stateless services that can then take multiple connections at once. We don't want to rate limit the inbound connection. We want to spread the connections out. So simple things like that could be an emergent behavior that you didn't design for. And so having that feedback very quickly enables you to, one, if it's possible to do with the live system, then maybe spin up another instance and create an auto scaling group and create a load balancer to load between all your different your services. Or you might need to go back to the design stage and go, well, we need to remove a portion of this service which has state, move that out to a separate area, use the stateless components, separate them out to be independently scalable, and then apply like a CQRS pattern to our state machine so that we're only making queries to the state when we absolutely need to. So this is where systems thinking, so systems archetypes and understanding how different systems work, which can be applied to population systems, can be applied to weather systems. It's not just computer systems, but then applying computer patterns or it's not just event-driven patterns, but integration patterns and the actual architectural patterns for computer systems together to understand like how to make a change, how to make a valuable change to the system that then again will have an effect on the system, and we immediately need to understand what's the impact. And so there are more than just, again, going back to the original question, it's more than just about the developers developing something and the ops people running it. It's also about the infrastructure people are the ops people, are the developers, are the testers, are the engineers who are helping to build the hardware out in the field that's communicating back in, are the architects who are looking at the end-to-end solution and its integration with other systems, who the developers of that specific system may not be considering. But all of that is a part of your DevOps team. It's understanding the relationships and the integration between those relationships, even between, this is why we have principal engineers and principal architects. They sit across multiple systems, but they are as much a part of the DevOps team for one system as they are for another, because they're now the integration point between those two teams. And then when we get into business, it becomes very much about if we have operational staff and support staff and they're on call, We need to understand their availability, their time. You've got to account for sick. You've got to account for people who need to take leave to take care of their family, that sort of stuff. So HR becomes a factor of your DevOps team as well. So in a way, the entire organization, maybe minus the C-suite payroll, become a part of your DevOps team from a very loosely coupled point of view.
Absolutely, absolutely, Aaron. Now, Aaron, we have always, I've always heard this from my parents that, there was something called legacy systems. But now, if I would just like to understand in the terms of the DevOps framework, do you think integrating DevOps with that of the legacy systems is a challenge, or you could just say, okay, it's like a cakewalk now, since, a lot of tools have been used, or what is your opinion on that?
It depends. So the dependence is on the individual, not on the tools available. So again, if you come with a very narrow mindset around these are the tools that I know, these are the languages that I write in, these are the scenarios or experience that I've been, through, and you only apply that, then maybe it might be quite a challenge, because maybe something that you face in integration or in migration of a legacy system may be something outside of your experience or outside of what you've looked at. However, if you come with an open mind and understand, we all have something to learn. I've been doing this for more than 20 years, and I still come to every project with, well, what am I going to learn in this project? It's not just because I've done mainframe migrations, I've done, legacy system integration before, doesn't mean this next one is going to be exactly the same. That being said, again, understanding your patterns, like a very common pattern that we use for legacy system integration is the Stranglefish pattern. So where we actually wrap ancillary systems around an existing legacy system and use those ancillary systems to do the translation and the migration between the new state, or the new system we're building, and the old state, the old legacy system. Understanding the environmental constraints, understanding, that maybe the language that is not the right language for this project, and you're going to
Exactly.
have to go and learn a new language. Then if you embrace the aptitude of learning new things, then no, it's not difficult to integrate and migrate legacy systems. It's just it's, as I said, it's on the individual whether they're open to adapting new ways, new practices, and learning new things, or whether they want to apply the same that they've always known to the project.
That completely sums up the point, Aaron. So now, Aaron, I just wanted to understand, like, what gives you that confidence, or let's say that, that drive, to architect, develop and manage like complex technological solutions. I'm using this complex technological solutions because it's like a huge game changer. So, what gives you the confidence for that?
So it's two parts, right? The first part is what I was saying to your first question. It's about exposure and experience. I've been blessed and lucky enough to be across some of the biggest systems in the world, some of the most complex solutions in Australia, across different parts of APJ, even different parts of the world. And so that's given me an exposure that has taught me a lot about very complex integrations and very complex, let's say, distributed systems. So in the way that you need to get data from one point to another, but it has to traverse different types of networks in terms of, radio, microwave, IP. We even have like laser-based networks, and I'm not talking photonics purely in fiber optics. I'm talking cutting-edge photonic laser transmission. NASA is doing a lot of this stuff at the moment with sending from satellites in deep orbit down to Earth, with trying to get data, a high baud rate of data being transmitted through laser. So these are some of the projects that I've been fortunate enough to be across in my position at AWS and in previous roles that I've had outside of AWS. The other is, let's not call it a birth defect, but it's something that I call my superpower, that as at a young age, I think many of us in my generation, it was called a disability. But so I'm ASD and ADHD, so that's autism spectrum disorder and attention deficit disorder. And I have competing conditions. So under my ASD, I have a tendency to fixate. So my brain locks onto something and I become obsessive. Like I can't let go until I solve it. Sometimes that means staying awake for 3 days in a row and just, focusing on something. But
Oh,
then my ADHD in the opposite direction is very, my brain is scattered all over the place. So the the line between the two is if I'm if I'm engaged on something, if something is sufficiently complex, my brain fixates, and so I just focus, and I obsess on that complex problem. But if it's not complex, my brain is scattered all over the place in so much that I focus in very small increments throughout the day. So I'll be across 4 or 5 things in a day, that I will jump between every 15, 20 minutes. Because my brain
oh,
just can't focus long enough, especially if it's reading. If I'm reading something, 15 minutes on one subject, and my brain just tunes out. So I've got to jump to something else. So I will go across 3 or 4 things that I'm reading at once, and every 15 minutes I'll jump between. So I've got a very good aptitude for context switching. So my brain has just adapted to, this is why I call it my superpower. It's adapted to that disability to be able to use it in a way that works for me. And so when I find something sufficiently complex, then yeah, I'm just fixated. And so that's why I've tended to go towards challenging situations or challenging projects that are very complex, and have had to date good success solving some very complex issues.
that's brilliant. Aaron, I would just, not say it as a disability. I would just say it's a superpower. Like Superman has the power of, flying across the sky. You have this power of, in AWS. And, and this is really, really, just, I mean, just giving you good growth in your career and, helping out everyone in the team and, bringing a lot of good things. And yeah, that's amazing, Aaron, for sure. That's pretty amazing. So, Aaron, if I would just like to ask you this, like, what was the last thing that you read? I mean, did you read anything before, coming for the podcast session, or anything like before the day?
Just the last thing in general, or the last thing? Um,
Anything
okay,
in
so
general.
right before the podcast, before the last meeting that I was in, I was reading. So I do document reviews for the partner solutions architects in APJ for case studies and like partnered, what do you call it? Yeah, use cases that they want to publish to make public case studies. We have a very specific style. We have a very specific bar that people need to pass to be able to publish publicly. Um, so part of my job in building up my organization is reviewing their documentation. So I spent, I think I've read it 3 times today. So I've spent 3 different 15-minute blocks across this
Oh,
one document, and each time I'll get further in it, and I'll document, and I'll give comments around, you need to change this, like active voice versus passive voice, spell out numbers less than 10, and like just simple editorial
right.
feedback. But after I get to about 15 minutes, like I can push myself to try and go further, but I've learned to just go with the flow of my brain, and I'll jump onto something else and I'll do that, and then I'll come back to it. And so I think I've looked at it about 3 times today, in amongst reading other narratives and other strategic documents that we're currently building as an organization. So I think 3 or 4 different documents today that I've been jumping across.
That's brilliant, Aaron. If I could, just sum this up, or let's say, if you would like to, you'd like me to give a name for this, it's like, fine tuning your understanding. So the more you're reading it, the more you're trying to, fine tune. Okay, this is, I mean, if we do this, we can improve this one. It's like, more you're getting a good understanding and, improving the process as it goes by. Yeah. Now, Aaron, now we were just talking about your entire thing with respect to, building the complex, complex technological solutions. Now, if I would just like to, come to your tenure, like with respect to the APO, which is the Amazon Web Services Partner Organization. So in the APG, in the, Asia Pacific and Japan region, like as a, as a, what do I say that as the next gen tech lead, like, would you like to, give me the insights with respect to that, pertaining to the APO?
Yeah. So the most common question I get asked about like being the next gen tech lead is like, what does that actually mean? um, So, because there's a difference between a solutions architect. So, solutions architect is kind of a job family, and then a tech lead is somewhat different. And by that I mean it's more about, from a tech lead perspective, it's more about thought leadership and pushing the needle for an organization, as opposed to direct direct partner and customer engagement and solving direct partner and customer problems, which is what a solutions architect does. So they're there designed to solve the problem of the partner they're assigned to or the customers they're assigned to. So as a next gen tech lead, my focus is on the next problem. So what are the current, not what is the current trends and hype? Like Gen AI has been huge over the last couple of years, so that's been a big part of my focus. But what are the next things that we need to solve? So I'm looking for signals through our partners, and I'm looking for dogs not barking. Like what are the things that aren't happening where we should have something, or I would expect to see something, and why are we not hearing it? Why are we not seeing it? So then trying to find out, what are we missing? Where do we need to go and actually give feedback to the partners and customers, or provide thought leadership and guide them through these areas. So yeah, a big part of my role is solving problems for partners that they don't know they have yet. So that's the next gen side. The other half is then working with them. So I do engage with partners and customers still, even though I'm not directly assigned to partners. I work with the PSAs who are assigned directly to their partners in more of the I guess, how would you put it, more strategic initiatives. So when, say, maybe multiple partners are involved with something and they need somebody to coordinate across multiple partners, I might step in. Or if it needs some more executive level engagement, with the C-suite or with the other customers executives, and bringing them all together and solving a problem. It could even be working with some of our larger partners, getting all of the executives in a room and building out a strategy, or solving a problem on paper, and then like involving the PSAs, involving the specialists, bringing everyone in, doing more of the coordination side of things from a multi-organizational point of view. So that's what my role specifically means at AWS. And as I said, I'm really only focused on the partners. At the end of the day, the partners' customers are our customers, but I'm focused on helping them develop their capability. So a lot of the problems that I'm solving with them is, well, how do we help our customers? How do we build our own, if we're talking Gen AI, what is agentic AI? How do I build agents? What is MCP? This new thing that Anthropic has just started talking about, and being across all the cutting edge technology before the partners need it, so that when they need somebody to guide them through it, I can step in and say, well, this is what it is, this is what it means, this is how you do it. And then it really does mean that I get to play a lot. So as a engineer, I still get my hands dirty with code. I still write code. I design hardware. I design distributed systems. And then I work with different people around the organization to build components of it and get them all working together, so that we can then take that to Summit or reInvent or different trade shows that we do and show them off, and then start conversations with our partners. And then, like, we want to build this. How do you build this? Then step in and help guide them through how to build it.
Got it, got it. Now, Aaron, suppose, a partner has approached you. First, do you give them a demo like, okay, this is how this is how the thing is going to work into your current system? Or do you just give them a first, let's say a digital twin kind of thing, or let's say, you have mentioned that framework in the notepad. Like, how do you start it? Does it go with the
So
systems approach, or does it go through the manual approach?
that's a good question. Like again, there's a difference between a tech lead and an SA. And from a solutions architect point of view, assigned to a partner, generally the partner would come and ask the solutions architect, hey, we want to learn about this. Can you help us with some new technology? And the partner solutions architect will come in and run a demo and run some enablement and training, and actually get them. It may even run a workshop on, let's build a proof of concept. Let's build something that's something for you, that's only covering what you need. It's not a generic demo. And then go and build it, and then demo it to them, and then step them through how they built it. Generally, that's how an SA works. For me, it's a little bit more. I get engaged at a more executive level, where they'll come in and say, listen, we are getting together our CTO, our CIO, we're getting together CXOs of our customers, a group of them, and we want to have a roundtable, and we want to sit down and discuss some of the common problems that we're having with our customers. And so I'll be the AWS representative, we'll have the CTO of the partner or one of the executives of the partner, and then the rest of them are all customers. And so now it's talking with the customers around how we are working together in partnership to solve these problems that they're dealing with, and then taking the feedback around, what more can we do? How can we solve this? And other times it's not partner customer, it's just partners. We'll get multiple partners in a room, and they'll invite me to a discussion and say, we're talking with our CSO, CFO, CTO, CIO. We've got the whole C-suite together, and they want to understand, what does agentic mean, or what does Gen AI mean, or pick some random machine learning or some random new technology. What does quantum computing mean? And come and talk to us about how do we build business value in our business from adopting this technology, and then talk to us about how we adopt this technology, or talk to us about that. So it's very much more business focused from a technology point of view, but leading from those engagements, that's where it usually goes into, well, here's the new technology that you said you wanted to talk about. Now let's engage your line of business people, or your, the not so much the C-suite, the people who are going to invest in it, but the people who are going to build with it. And then we come in and we run a workshop, and we say, well, let's build out a solution, and then let's go and build it together. And so I might support them with bringing in our ProServe, or bringing in the partner PSA that's assigned, or different resources from specialist organization to help build this proof of concept. And then once they've got the proof of concept, work with them to turn that into a productization strategy. So if it's a partner, like an SI partner who does integrations for customers, then help them to break it down into modular pieces that they can deploy for different customers, or turn it into a SaaS solution that they can, build multi-tenancy into, or depending what the solution is, because I'm just being very generic. It could mean
Yeah.
many different things. And so working with them to understand how to take a proof of concept and turn it into a production ready system.
Amazing. Now, Aaron, now since you've just mentioned about the proof of concept, the POC. Now, when it comes to the POC, I'm pretty much aware that there's a workshop. But when it comes to a workshop, does that go with a fixed timeline, or does it follow the agile the agile route? Okay, let's say sprint one, sprint two. Does it go like that, or it doesn't go with any of
Every
that?
engagement is different, right? So some are just a one-day workshop. Yeah, so they'll run through the entire workshop. At the end of the workshop, they have the proof of concept that they can work with, and then they'll go off and build on top of it. Others could be a multi-week, multi-month engagement, where it starts with getting all the right people in the room to discuss what are the nuances of the environment that we're building into, what are the constraints, what are the bits of technology you mentioned before, legacy. What are the legacy systems we need to integrate with, or what do we need to uplift or bring with us? Having workshops around that. So we call these working backwards workshops. So what do we want to achieve? And then working
All
backwards
right.
to, long term, medium term, short term. Now, what are the actions that we can take now? So that usually takes 3 days to do a working backwards. And then from there, it may be engaging, depending on the appetite of the return on investment. So if it's going to have a large return on investment, then we might throw a team at it. If it's supporting the development of a partner, then they may invest in it, and we might give our PSA resource and a couple of other resources to help them develop something internally. But it may not be a multi-month engagement. It may just be a couple of weeks until we get to a point where we're happy with this. Now you take over and keep building on top of it.
Brilliant, brilliant. So as you're just trying to mention it out to me, it's just more like it depends on the requirement. Like if we just require it immediately, it will follow this particular methodology. If if they're like, okay, we still have time, so it just follows that month model
Yeah,
as you were just
things
mentioning
things
earlier.
that I get involved with nowadays that are sufficiently complex generally span months to years. We try and keep them within months in terms of my engagement, but the partner building things, it can take. I've been across projects that have taken 3 years with their customer, or something that they're building internally in terms of a product. because they're very complex and there's lots of moving parts. My engagement cumulatively may only be about 3 months worth of that 3 years, like a month a year almost.
All right. So for that POC, again, I'm just going back to that POC route again, Aaron. So now for that POC thing, Aaron, like what is the backend technology that the people are always bringing upon? Like, do they use just one particular technology, or is it like it depends on the entire scope of it?
Yeah, going back to understanding the requirements and the environment, there's no such thing as one size fits all. So it's bringing multiple technologies, multiple languages, multiple protocols. So even distributed systems, distributor and field systems, right? Not everyone uses the standard Microsoft's MQTT protocol for communicating over, device through to our IoT core or through to a socket, right? Some use cellular, so some are going to be 4G, 5G, and we have to come in through that way. Others are going to be WiMAX, or others are going to be other forms of radio telemetry. So there are multiple technologies just for communication, and that's just the communication bit, right? Then the physical hardware in the field. Is it a device that we can install IoT Greengrass, which is our IoT, our SDK, so our software to run on devices? If it's not, are we helping them to design communication protocol to our IoT core, or to a WebSocket, or to an SQS, like to a queuing system, or Kafka, or is it a Kinesis stream? Like there's so many different things that they could integrate with, but it's down to the appetite of are they willing to learn new languages, work with new hardware, or are they constrained to what they know, what they have? That's the device in the field, and then we're on the back end, right? So yeah, okay, it's going to be predominantly AWS focused. I'm from AWS, and maybe a little bit of hybrid, right? So there might be some on-premises stuff, may even be some cross-cloud stuff. So we might be talking to Azure Active Directory in Azure, and maybe some containerized system that they've had running for a long time in GCP. That's fine. We still need to integrate all these parts to get everything working in the AWS environment. So now we have to integrate between different hyperscalers, as well as on premises, as well as what is the appetite for learning new things in AWS? Are they just going to, let's say they're a Java shop, they've been running Java for their back end business systems. So now everything they develop in the cloud, they want to be Java. So do we run EKS? Do we run ECS? Do we run Java Lambda? There are so many different ways of handling a solution for a problem that most people say, oh, like no solution as long as it's covering all the requirements is the wrong solution. This is where I disagree, and I say go back to understanding systems thinking and critical thinking, and there is always the right solution at the end of the day, but there are contributing factors to maybe why that right solution won't be used. In terms of the technology Puritan, one could be cost. And so now the right solution is the one that costs the right amount of money, right? So it's going to be different factors that lead to one solution. So you may have competing ideas, competing proof of concepts, but at the end, the one solution will fit all the constraints and the environment and the integration that we have to, or when I say integration, the relations. So environment, constraints, and relation. That way, once you have sort of an understanding of what you're building, you will have a better understanding of, is it going to be containerized? Is it going to be serverless? Is it going to be event driven? Is it going to be what do you call it? Data, the opposite of it, orchestrated? Like there are different ways of solving the problem. But then once all of those things are fine tuned, now we're down to the nuances of, well, you're using Java, but actually it's going to be more efficient for you to run Python for some ML workload that you need to do some data processing. So go and learn Python. And it's going to be more efficient for you to run maybe JavaScript or TypeScript for Node, for your Lambda environment, or your step functions, or what, we're gonna run some agents through Amazon Bedrock. So let's go and write some very simple scripts, and we're just using again, could be Python, could be TypeScript, could be JavaScript, could be Bash script. So now we're having to mix in different technologies to get to the right solution. So as long as you're focused on the solution and not the details around, oh, I only know Java, so everything's going to be written in Java, then
Yeah.
then the technology is going to be diverse.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's very much that's very much insightful, Aaron, on this complete note. So now, Aaron, now I just wanted to understand this. Like, I'm pretty much aware that in the APJ region, the Asia Pacific and Japan region, I just wanted to, understand this more specifically, that, what are the roles and responsibilities of yours as a CTO for the APO, which is the Amazon Web Services Partner Organization. So
Yeah.
how do you sum that up?
So as the CTO, right? So the next gen tech lead is my official title, which is serving as a CTO. So what we've discussed so far is 50% of my job. The other 50% is building up my organization. So that is supporting and uplifting the technical bar of the PSA organization across APJ. So working with my solutions architects to help them understand new and emerging technologies. So obviously, a solutions architect is a fairly senior role as it is. So a lot of everyone who's come into the partner organization has some experience somewhere else, right? So they've been an SDE or they've been a network engineer or they've been an infrastructure engineer. They have experience across things. And as a solutions architect, they apply that experience into their role. Now, as a generalist, there's a lot to learn, right? There's over 200 and something, services in AWS. And you can't be expected to know and learn them all. So we
Yeah.
we have some form of just-in-time learning, but then when they need that just-in-time learning, so what just-in-time learning is, if their partner needs something, then they will go and learn it a week out before their partner needs it to be the SME to come and lead their partner through it, right? They're applying a lot of their experience and knowledge in other areas to learn that thing very fast, and then they're immersing themselves. They can spend that time to just immerse themselves in only that, so that they can become a specialist or an SME in that area for their partner. But what are they immersing themselves in? So I need to look at, what are the training materials available? What are proof of concepts, workshops, different demos that they have at their disposal to go and deep dive into, working with other organizations around providing capabilities like prototyping or specialist organizations who have SMEs and helping them cross skill and saying, well, you need to get to a level 200, which is like a depth greater than your partner's going to be. But when you get to these certain areas and we need to go level 300, level 400, now start to engage the specialists. What are the playbooks? How do we understand who to engage, when to engage? All of this stuff is helping develop an organization, right? So I work with my team to help build out the partner organization from the technical point of view across APJ. And then the last part of my job is more kind of a CSO hat, is making sure that all of our organization maintains compliance in terms of our security posture. So the demos and the proof of concept and everything that we're building, we have our own monitoring systems, we have our own control systems, going through all those reports, making sure that the team are doing things securely, making sure that if I'm getting alerts, I'm chasing those people and saying, hey, why are you not auto patching your EC2 instances, or why are you using an older version of Java and Lambda when you should be using blah blah, just administrative tasks, helping
Got it.
keep the organization secure. And then finally, I guess I would call it specialist thought leadership. So not just in working with the partners, but also providing additional thought leadership. So I write white papers and blogs and stuff in my SME area, so more in the software engineering side of things. So a lot of presentations, a lot of attending conferences and networking and that sort of stuff.
Brilliant. I mean, Aaron, I mean, you just give me that inspiration that, you can don multiple hats, and, this is certainly an inspiration for me. And really, really, looking back at your experience and everything, it's really, really amazing. Like, how are you able to accommodate all of this, in one particular go, in a particular week?
It comes with the ability to context switch. So if you can become comfortable with being uncomfortable, so if you can be, you're happy to put yourself somewhere that maybe you feel out of place, but also sit down and focus in, like 15-minute block or 20-minute block, and then move into something else. If you can keep jumping around and be comfortable jumping around, you will achieve a lot more than, and probably all of your lecturers at uni are going to hate me for saying this, but like context switching isn't a bad thing. Like jumping around between many things, I can actually achieve as you said, many more things in a day or a given week or a given month. Now, it's not going to be, I'm going to see one thing out to completion, then move to the next thing to completion, then move to the next thing to completion. It is very much by the end of the week, maybe I've got 5 things that are not 100% complete. Maybe they're 90% complete. But next week, I'm going to bump off 5 things because I've got 10% to do on each of those. But at the same time, I'm going to pick up another 5 things. So it may seem like doing one thing to completion and then doing one more thing to completion is a much better way of doing things. But then I would question what's better, Agile or waterfall, and how much more you're going to get out, and how much feedback can you take in the middle of those things and adopt that feedback and adapt to changing environment in the middle of that process, as opposed to seeing one thing to completion and then going back and reviewing it and then going back and amending it, where I'm doing that throughout the process. So it's kind of a human way of running Agile across everything.
Amazing, Aaron. That's brilliant. Now, Aaron, we were just talking about your current tenure. So, Aaron, like, can you just shed some spotlight about your tenure where you were acting as a global solutions architect, and then a principal partner solutions architect for the Australia, which is like the GSI for the Australia and New Zealand lead, like a couple of years.
Yep,
So, can you just brief me more about that?
sure. So when I first came to AWS, so I've been at AWS now for just over 5 years. When I first came to AWS, I was hired as a partner solutions architect, so a senior partner solutions architect. So the way that the levels work, as a senior, you're a senior of industry, right? You're a senior in your area of expertise. So I came in as a senior partner solutions architect, so a solutions architect working with partners in the GSI space. So as I said, I had experience across some large scale projects. And so I was hired in for that role in GSI. So GSI means Global Systems Integrators. So that's the likes of Accenture, Deloitte, PwC, Capgemini, Infosys. There's the big, the big four, and then the bigger consulting agencies out there. They're called Global Systems Integrators, so GSIs. So I was brought in to focus initially on one GSI and focus on just ANZ, so just in this region. And within that first year, I learned a lot in terms of working with. I've worked with GSIs before, but as a specialist consultant, as opposed to working with them as a partner solutions architect. So it very much was a year of earning trust. So I had to build up my reputation internally within this GSI. So that meant going and building relationships with not just the alliance leaders, but also other areas of excellence or centers of excellence inside the organization, and align with different leaders across the organization to become a trusted advisor, right? That's the role, the Nirvana PSA, or the Nirvana Partner Solutions Architect, is a trusted advisor, somebody who that partner immediately thinks, oh, I need to go and talk to that person because I've got this problem, instead of, oh, let's go and try and solve this problem, and if we get stuck, then we'll go and validate it with if that's the relationship you have, then there's more work to do to become that first point of call. So within that first year, that was all my job was like building up reputation, solving very small problems, solving very like helping them in the areas that they needed. But for me, it wasn't that real complex stuff. It was just the stuff they
Okay.
needed, but also
Yeah.
proving my capability. So at the end of that year, that's when I started the promotion path at Amazon. Yes, it takes quite a long time. So I wasn't promoted until the end of my second year. So 2 years in, and on my second year anniversary is when I was promoted on my second year anniversary. Yeah, so second year in, and when I got promoted to a principal, that was when, say, as a principal, your scope changes. And so my scope as a senior was just focused on the one GSI and just within this region. So my scope changed to now focusing on, I was still focusing on ANZ initially, but then supporting the larger GSI community. So working with other PSAs inside GSI. But then as my scope was, and as I was enabled to change my scope, that's when I stepped into the global principal solutions architect for that GSI. And what that meant was, instead of just focusing on the problems in ANZ region, then I was focusing on all problems of sufficiently complex nature for that GSI anywhere in the world. And so it may have meant, hey, we've got a problem that we can't solve easily. So the local PSA in maybe the United States or in Europe or wherever it was stuck. They couldn't help. The specialists couldn't work it out. I would then go in and help coordinate. So I'd work with the local resources to then build out the solution for that complex problem. So I could have been as not just could have been, my first posting was to Boston in the United States. So I was sent to Boston to work with this GSI, spent 2 weeks with them, basically in a boardroom with lots of whiteboards. And it looked like, probably looked like A Beautiful Mind, the movie A Beautiful Mind. By the
Yeah,
end of that 2 weeks, we just had whiteboards and sticky notes and everything all over the windows and everything. And it was basically just mapping out an entire complex problem and then breaking it down into modules and then saying, like, what are the next steps? How do we move forward? And then from there, after that 2 weeks, it became more of a architectural review engagement. So now we've solved what we need to do. I step back and they go and build it. They start building and working. And then I just come in once a week or once a fortnight and we do review and architecture review. And if decisions need to be made, we discuss what's the best decision, that sort of stuff. So that was the global principal solutions architect. And I did that for another so all in all, that was 4 years. So 2 years as a senior, 2 years as a principal, and then I've been the next gen tech lead or the CTO for the partner org for APJ for the last almost year and a half now.
brilliant, brilliant. Aaron, now in the starting, when I posed you a question, about different frameworks, you were talking about systems thinking, critical thinking, systems design. But if I would just like to ask you in depth, Aaron, like what are the types of technologies that you have always been expertise with, and you are still, trying to, dig deep into that?
So technologies or frameworks?
Technologies, I would say backend technologies or backend languages, or
Okay.
all the things summing it up.
So in terms of languages, I think I worked it out the other day. Throughout my professional career, I've used 13 different languages. I still use 11 within a year, but I probably only most commonly use about 5 languages in a given time. Like the 11 also includes if I have to go and do some data analysis or work with upgrading some hardware and I need to convert some COBOL or something. I don't write in COBOL anymore, but if I need to, I can write patches for COBOL and or translate COBOL into another language. So that's something I would consider a language. But in terms of languages that I use most commonly, it would be for business systems. Again, it depends on the project. One of my favorite quotes by Dan Bernbach, who was in advertising industry, was always adjust your technique to your project, not your project to your technique. And so what that means is find the right language, because there's not all languages are equal, right? Everyone's like, oh, I know Python, I can use Python on everything. Okay, well, Python is a scripting language. Python is not truly an object-oriented language, although you can do some object-oriented nature with it. It's not an object-oriented language. It's a sequential language. So it's going through the sequence of the file that you write. And yes, Python Puritans can argue, but you can break it into multiple files and you can create objects and stuff. It's like, true, you can, but it doesn't really have full polymorphism as an object-oriented language does. So there are benefits to using Python as a scripting language, especially in data analysis and areas where it's been proven to be most effective. But in other areas, I wouldn't use it for, say, UI. I wouldn't use it for a web, the web UI, or that I would favor JavaScript because it executes directly in the browser, right? There's environmental constraints that help lead you towards the right language. And then the argument there might be around, well, JavaScript or TypeScript. It's like, well, cool. To me, it means no difference because TypeScript is transpiled into JavaScript anyway. And so by the time it is bundled, because it's not compiled, by the time it's bundled and deployed into the application as a web application, it's JavaScript. So if you can write JavaScript very well, then just use JavaScript. But JavaScript is a very adaptable language in so much as I can create objects that have multiple purposes. So not just polymorphism, but dynamics. I can actually create dynamic objects that are both an array and a string and a class, right? Whereas if you're using TypeScript, then you've got true typing, right? So it's gives you that constraint that many people are used to with more common object-oriented languages like Java or .NET, or C#. .NET is the framework. But so commonly, if I'm working in business systems, the two most common languages are Java and C#. And then with C#, predominantly .NET Core now. It used to be .NET Framework. There's still a lot of .NET Framework out there, or .NET Standard, or whatever. I think it's still called .NET Framework, but a lot of business systems now using .NET Core to be able to run on Linux and Unix instead of having to run on Windows machines. And then in distributed systems, so if we're doing say embedded systems, then it would be C and C++. If depending on the hardware, if we have a what do you call it, a runtime environment, like if it's a Raspberry Pi, then I might use Python, because there's a lot of great libraries and frameworks for Raspberry Pi for using Python, right? And it's just much easier and faster to use those libraries instead of writing all your own. So it really comes down to the tools and libraries available for the different environment. That's probably the only two places I'd use Python, though, is maybe Raspberry Pi, maybe Lambda as well. So Lambda, depending on what I'm trying to achieve, I might use a Lambda. More often than not, I will use TypeScript for Lambda, because I'm providing those Lambdas to other people. And so using a strong type language that can run under Node is very helpful and easy for them to debug. But if I'm writing it for myself, I might just use vanilla JavaScript. C, C++, Java, .NET, what else? I said 5, didn't I? Oh, yeah. So Rust, if I'm doing some really low level, so now not business systems, but actual low level service integration, I will work with Rust. Sometimes I will work with Go, and sometimes, so now I'm talking like non-object oriented languages, depending on what I need to do. So Rust is an aspect oriented language, and Go is a functional language. So it will depend on what I'm trying to achieve. If I'm doing video streaming or audio or packet streaming, then I'm more likely to use Go than I would be to use Java or even C++. But if I'm doing like low level sharding, so like understanding how to do memory management for data, then I'll probably use Rust for something like that. So that's the kind of stuff that I get involved in. But again, remember, I'm now a tech lead, so I have the advantage of just building the prototype and then handing a prototype off to somebody else, and so they need to go and figure out optimizing it for production. I will guide them and advise them, but I'm not doing the building from proof of concept out.
Absolutely. Now, if I would just like to, ask you this, Aaron, do you have any, intention of, learning this low code, no code, language anytime in the future? Is that
Yeah,
something you
so
would like to explore?
I work directly with most closely with a current partner who is working across a few different industries. They're working across defense, working across finance industry. So they're actually finding some success in their platform. So they develop the company, if you want to go and look them up, it's called Tomorrow X. They developed their own low code, no code platform. And I've worked with
Okay.
them from early stages to help understand how to do what we call composable architecture. If you want to understand what composable architecture is, go and do a Google search on Programmable Conference and look for composable architecture. I just gave a speech at Programmable a couple of weeks back in Sydney and Melbourne on infrastructure as logic, the foundations of composable architecture. But essentially, that's building packages or libraries of infrastructure that can be deployed through program. So at runtime as well as at build time. So working with this low code, no code platform to understand, they have the integration space sorted. Like everything that they've built, they've got connectors. They've even got little logic, that you can click and drag
Yeah,
if this, then that, and do this and this, and you can build
exactly.
your entire logic visually. But having building out components to say, you know what, I need a data lake. Instead of going and building a data lake, step by step, just having a package that you go and deploy a data lake and give me an API, or go and deploy a web front end that will allow me to, run like a content management system, or building these kind of packages. So working with them to build out, let's call them modules or components, that they can then use in their workflow. They're having a lot of success in working with big enterprises and defense and different organizations, solving some really tough problems by being no code, low code, and allowing the analysts, the business analysts, to get in and define the problem and the solution at the same time.
That's amazing. Like, I mean, I used to work for for a startup company. I mean, now it's an MNC. So that's a UK-based MNC in Hyderabad. I was part of it. So they used to use a platform called Appian, which is another low-code, no-code technology. But this is the first time that I've actually heard about Tomorrow X and whatever they're doing. That's really remarkable for sure.
Yeah. So I also work with integration platforms like Informatica and other partners, like they're AWS partners, and work with them where needed. But each has their own almost macro language, so it's more of a configuration language. I am really getting into pure no code, as in you're not even writing configuration language. It is drag and drop. I think there
Exactly.
are, as
Yeah.
generative AI is evolving, I think we're going to see a lot more of that. Like at the moment, we're seeing vibe coding, where you talk through a solution and it writes code, and then you affect it and you talk about it, and you build out your app. But I think we'll become even more abstracted to the point where we'll just say, I need an app to do this. And I know one of my ex-colleagues, he's now at a company called V2. So Dr. Pete has coined the phrase flowgramming. So where we just say, go and build me
Oh,
an application to do blah, blah, blah. And an agent or a series of agents goes and builds it for you. And then they give you the full working system. He's calling flowgramming, because it's a workflow of agents.
it's a
And you,
workflow.
yeah,
Exactly.
you're
Yeah.
programming through a workflow. So I think as we continue to flowgram, we'll even get more abstracted to the point where we're just like, I need this, I need this. It's like Minority Report. You're dragging stuff around on a screen and you hit submit, and there's your solution, and you allow the agents in the back end to go and build it for you. So the more things evolve, the more abstractions we build on top of the previous generation. And I think no code, low code, while we haven't had a lot of success in previous generations, is becoming more and more the new tools of the developer.
Agreed, Aaron. Now, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty much aware of the fact that you even have a startup company called Ion Systems. So I just wanted to understand, like, what led to the creation of Ion Systems, and what's that feeling like being the co-founder of it?
Sure. So Ion Systems uh, started when I was working with my co-founder at another organization a few organizations back. I was the tech lead there for we were working in an advertising company. So was actually so Dan Bernbach, the guy who I mentioned the quote for, he was the founder of, or one of the three founders of, DDB, the advertising company. They're one of the world's largest advertising companies. So I was the tech lead for the technical division. So it's called Tribal, but it's a group within DDB who manage more of the technical side. So we talk about uh, simple things in advertising like web and like creative stuff. That's technical. Yes, we were doing a lot of, I was managing teams who were building websites and that sort of stuff, but it's also the the real world activation. So like building photo booths and building fun interactive components in the field where people can, like the Disney's Magic Door, where you open the door and Mickey Mouse is standing there and you interact with Mickey Mouse, and close the door and open the door again and you're looking at somebody in France, right? Like these are technology-based solutions that we were building there. So he came in as one of my consultants to work on a project. And we, through this project, we started talking about some of the field systems that we'd both worked on. And we realized through our third founder, that there was a need for, so the product that we built through Iron Systems was a situational awareness system that helped firefighters understand and manage fatigue in a firefighting environment, so in a hazardous environment. So we on the side of the we checked it with our employment contract first, and we were allowed to go and do stuff on the side. So so we started working together on building a prototype, and we so our third founder is a PhD in one of the biological sciences. So he understood the biological side of what we were trying to achieve, and then Luke and I understood the technology side. And so we worked together to build out a product that piggybacked on top of the firefighters' headphones, like their comm system, and it used a sensor to read from the tympanic blood vessel to understand blood pressure, heart rate, and core temperature. But then the device that sat, so it connected through to a device that sat on their back. It also had sensory for internal the PPE, so their protective equipment temperature, as well as external temperature. So they could be in very hot conditions, very hazardous conditions, which if they had a rupture in their PPE, it could kill them. So we needed to understand external temperature, internal temperature, core temperature. It also had a 6-axis accelerometer, so understanding the orientation of the device, which meant we were understanding the orientation of the person it was attached to. So we started along this path. So I came from a situational awareness and field systems point of view. The others came from more of a hazardous environment point of view. And we came together and started building a prototype. But then we took 2 interns from Melbourne University, from the ML department, who were doing their PhD. One was doing a master's and one was doing a PhD in machine learning. And so we worked together with these interns to build out a model that allowed us to understand the orientation of the firefighter. So were they crawling, were they walking, were they running, were they jumping, were they climbing up a ladder? So there was an altimeter on it as well, so understood altitude. Were they so working with the heart rate, the core temperature, the pulse, so rate and pressure. So the blood pressure and pulse, so heart rate and pressure, understanding like, are they having a heart attack? Are they lying down and just have they passed out? Are they still alive? Have they died? You know, that kind of stuff. Without visibly being able to see them, the situation commander on their data terminal would be able to see where each of their people are in the field, and then understand what is their orientation. So are they currently active? Are they about to fatigue? And then there's a lot more science that our other co-founder brought in to work with the ML students to understand fatigue side of things. So looking at patterns in their pulse and heart rate and those kind of things. And so the end result of that was we had a small ML inference that we embedded into the device that then allowed it to send signals to the command system that said, you know, I'm over here, I'm doing this, you know, I'm running, I'm jumping, I'm doing whatever. And so that was just super fun and super exciting. And there was always, like, when it's your own product, I work a lot for AWS, but I reckon I was probably working way more on my own product back in those days. Just because like I would spend nights, you know, working through the night because you just fixated on your product because it's yours and you need to improve it. You know what you can achieve, and it just takes time. Like it's only 3 of us plus our 2 students, you know, like there's very small team working on a product that we're trying to build out to get to manufacturing, to get to, you know, prototype stage, to then have a field. So we worked with Air Services Australia to then test in their the firefighting division in Air Services Australia to test the equipment. So like it was exciting and at the same time probably the most exhausting job that I ever had, because you just like you're just putting everything you have into it.
Absolutely. Now, suppose you get the opportunity of, again, bringing some students from Melbourne University. Now, I understand that, they're completely into machine learning and they have that experience of, training and testing the data. But Aaron, do you see that, that is there any, any necessity of using a business intelligence tools like, Power BI or Tableau in the future? Or do you feel that, okay, till that it is fine, we'll just, confine it there?
Yeah, absolutely. So businesses, a lot of at enterprise level, so a lot of enterprise businesses, they don't have a lot of ML students and you know, specialist SREs or SDEs or SysDEs or, you know, like anyone who has engineer in their title. You know, maybe they've got application developers, but like to go and do some heavy level, machine learning and data analysis and stuff, that's quite expensive. And so not all enterprises are going to, pay top dollar to have these kind of skills in-house. And so they'll either work with organizations like partners that can do that for them. And those partners will go and build something for them. And more often than not, it's going to be on existing products and just building out the capability using those existing products so they can hand it over to the enterprise, or the enterprise will go and invest in like Tableau or different products that they can go and build their capabilities into without needing the data engineering sort of skill set. But equally, again, that's where we're investing from the AWS point of view. That's where we're investing our AI into. So we've got generative AI integrations into our like Q for business. So for building out those types of tools, we've got insights. It's the Power BI, the AWS Power BI equivalent, right? So we've got our dashboard that we have integrated into Q. So QuickSight integrated into Q integrated into it to say, I need to analyze this data to build this chart to show me this. And so you don't have to build it. The agent will build it for you. And now you can see the view, and then you can manipulate it and say, I need to change this a bit, or that's not quite right, change this label, and it'll go and do it for you. So yes, the tools are needed, but equally, as we integrate and adopt more things into these tools, and I'm not just talking about our specific tools, but as industry, adopt more generative AI and adopt more integration with other tools, these tools will become even more important. So allowing at the end of the day, it's the business value that's the most important, right? It's not the capability to be able to build the ML model or to do the data analysis. It's the value that data analysis provides the business, right? So at the end of the day, a business is going to look at what is the most effective way for me to get to my business value, not, I need to go and hire a team of PhD students to go and build an ML model, because that is going to be a very costly exercise. But if that's the only way they can get to their business value, then that's what they'll do.
Truly, that is totally agreeable, Aaron. Now, Aaron, before we conclude our podcast segment, so we were just going to take a very lighter route. We were just talking too much technical and completely just unraveling through different technologies. Now we'll just go with your our likes, interests, dislikes, all of that through a rapid fire. So, Aaron, if I would just like to ask you this, what's your favorite street food of all time?
Favorite street food? I would probably say grilled. What's it called? I'm trying to think of the English word. It's Korean, but it's grilled octopus. Not grilled octopus. Grilled squid.
Okay. All right. That's hardcore, I would say. That's nice. So now, Aaron, I can just see a background of some animation kind of thing, I mean, behind. So, Aaron, what was that? What was the first cartoon that you saw like during your childhood? I mean, were you into cartoons
I
back then?
loved cartoons. It depends. If you mean like very, very first, I think the first one that I can remember is I was 3 years old, and it was Esteban and the City of Gold, which was an adventure cartoon about a little Spanish boy going on an adventure looking for his father and going in search of a city of gold. That was my all-time favorite from like 3 years old. But in terms of, I love anime. So my first anime that I ever saw was Akira. But then any Studio Ghibli anime I love. But I'm also very much into like One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, all the modern anime. So
Brilliant. It's just the time of anime now, but unfortunately, I'm not a person who's completely into anime. I used to watch anime, but I don't know whether that was anime back then. I used to watch something called Beyblade, Pokemon, Digimon, which was when I was
that's
real little.
cartoon. That's cartoon, not anime, but it's close. It's close.
Exactly. So I don't relate much to that, and I feel like, okay, I did not see anime then
I think
on those lines.
I'm slightly older than you because I remember when Pokemon first came out. So I was around before Pokemon existed. Uh, so Esteban and the City of Gold, it would have been in the, he was in the 80s. So yeah, long before you were born.
Right. If I would just like to ask you, like, what's your favorite genre of music? Whether it's, is it R&B, is it rock music, is it pop music, or is it just, hip hop music? Which one would you choose?
So it depends what I'm doing. Um, so I generally like indie rock. And I have a collection. I travel around the world a lot, so I have a collection of indie rock from many countries. Like I just came back from Bangalore and brought back with me another
Oh,
artist from Bangalore. I have a lot of American stuff that doesn't get to the Australian charts. I have some Middle Eastern. So it's kind of independent. Some of it is cultural. Some of it is like you could call it rock or you could call it punk. It straddles the line, but the key theme between all of them is I need to feel it. It's gotta mix something in my emotion, or it's gotta touch me. There's
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
So that's my general go-to. And then if I'm coding, I'll generally listen to something like deep house or some kind of semi-instrumental techno.
Awesome. Suppose, Aaron, you just have a deployment that's, that has to be done. So once the deployment is done, what is the song that you play to, celebrate the team success?
Probably First of Me by Hoobastank.
Oh, right. That's a unique choice. That's really good.
So
Now, the
that
final
that one
question to
is
you, Aaron, like, what's your favorite holiday destination?
favorite holiday destination is Sapa in northern Vietnam.
Oh, Vietnam.
So
That's
it's
good.
it's
So,
right on the beginning of the Himalayan ranges.
oh, Vietnam falls under the Himalayan region. So,
So at the very north of Vietnam is an area called Sapa, which is at the very foothills of the Himalayan ranges. So I travel to Sapa and then have traveled up onto Mount Fanchipang. So that's the first of the mountains in the Himalayan ranges. So it's one of my favorite places to go because it's Himalayan, like it's up in the mountains, so you get the crisp, fresh air. Um, it's thin. The air is thinner because you're much higher. Uh, it's on the Vietnam side, and it's very so there's a lot of like markets and rice fields, and it's very mountainous and just pristine. So it's a great place to go and just rest and relax.
amazing. So, Aaron, along with that, now, what is the best thing that you have found about India? Like, I've just heard that, you've worked and, you collaborated with a lot of people belonging to India. So, what is that particular key takeaway that you would like to take from India all the way to Australia?
From a work and technology point of view, or from a culture point of view. Well,
From a culture point of view, or let's say from the cuisine point of view, like what is that something
okay,
that
so
you would like to grab on?
the spice that we get here in Australia is nothing compared to the spice that we have in India. I love Indian food. I was what was the word? Like I was disappointed when I went into an Indian restaurant in India with just a couple of, let's say, white guys. We, like European guys, maybe a better way of saying it. Um, and we ordered some spicy food, and they brought it back. They brought it out, and they're like, oh, hope you enjoy it. And they came back and they said, how is it? And we're like, well, it's not really spicy, because we can eat, like we've grown up. I've grown up eating very spicy food, like Southeast Asian food. So Thai food is very spicy. I've grown up eating this food, so I'm used to quite spicy. And so when I had this food there, I was like, oh, it's very flavorsome, but I thought it would be more spicy. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we saw that you were European, so we didn't want to give you the proper, but like we'll take you out to another restaurant and we'll try there. So when we went there, I've never tasted it in my life. I don't often see pork in India, but it was a pork uh, black pepper curry. So it was made from black pepper with pork, but it had these very lime green almost chilies. So not like the green chilies we get here, which are kind of like medium spicy. These things almost were like when you eat wasabi and it just gives you that flush of through your system, but it was a spice, right? So it kind of like went through your nose and everything, like a gasp of spice, and then it kind of dies down to like a medium, like it's a warm tingle that just stays there, but every mouthful it just blasts you with that spice until it goes down to that medium, tingle. And so you just keep eating and you're crying, and it's a blast of flavor and spice, and it's a whole experience. It's not just spice, and it's not just flavor, it's the whole thing. I think it kicks some endorphins that just make you want to eat more, and because you're having fun, right? We don't get that kind of food here in Australia, or at least Europeans walking into Indian restaurants don't get that kind of food here in Australia. But I think it's probably more because maybe we can't import a lot of the spices that are used, or it's just, even if we can, maybe because of the preservation of them to get them here, it changes them, so it's not quite the same. So just the flavor profiles, in even some of the things that I eat here and then eat them over there, completely different. Like, have that same kind of flavor, but you can taste a whole lot more. So if
Absolutely.
I could bring
Yeah.
anything with me back to Australia, it would be the kind of food that get treated to when I'm in India.
Totally agreeable, because I've also tried a lot of Indian restaurants in Melbourne. Few of them are very authentic, but few of them, the spice is almost the same. I feel like when I order some curry, okay, this is the same spice that's been used. And it's more like, catering to the needs of the people back here in Melbourne and, across Australia. So I feel it's not truly Indian food, but it's a good try, I could just say for sure.
It's European Indian food. It's the step up for Europeans,
Exactly.
but yeah, if you want real Indian food, you have to go to India.
Absolutely. India is the place where you can, try the authentic Indian food for sure. And the thing about it is, Aaron, is, like as you go to different states, our cuisine keeps on changing. It's not a constant thing. It just keeps on changing everywhere.
I loved chap in Delhi, and then like different foods. So I was in Delhi earlier, towards the end of last year, and the food in Delhi was completely different to the food in Bangalore, and just the different flavors and everything. I know I love it, and I'm slowly starting to pick up the language, but some of the things that I'm learning I
Oh,
can't say. So I'm only learning the swear words, or the not so polite words. I need to learn more polite.
okay.
I can say when they asked me, is it too spicy? I say, oh no, pasante. I like it. It's so yeah, I'm slowly getting there.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, you learn it really well. I mean, definitely, it's not that tough, but once you start speaking to people, you'll just get habitual with respect to that. So for sure.
Just need to spend more time there, like immerse myself, and then I'll pick up the language faster.
Agreed, totally. So, Aaron, once again, I really thank you so much for taking your time and being part of this podcast episode. One thing I can say for sure, Aaron, is that you just took me through different worlds of technology, and it was more like a multiverse, like Doctor Strange multiverse. It was like a
Yeah.
multiverse of technology, and I was completely immersed in that talk that where you were talking about the type of technologies that you have been expertise with, and then like I mean when it comes to documentation, like how do you read that, and then when it comes to the admin work, so the things that I really was completely blown away was like, how did that lead to the creation of ion systems, and how did you collaborate with the fire department of Australia, and then bringing in people from Melbourne University. And having said that, your tenure of working as an Australia and New Zealand lead. So a lot of key notes, Aaron, from this episode, and really it was amazing, and I totally enjoyed my conversation with you for today, for
It
sure.
was my pleasure. I enjoyed as well. Thank you.
All right. So, Aaron, Aaron, also along with that, what I would like to say is that a lot of new things for our listeners as well, and they could relate to it, and now they can understand that okay, one particular technology doesn't suffice. You need to expand your horizon, and you need to go throughout with it.
Yeah, I would say for anyone still studying, even in your third, like last year, is don't consider everything that you're learning at university, everything that you're going to be doing from here on out. University teaches you the foundation, right? It's teaching you how to learn. It's teaching you the basic skills that you'll need as you step out. I was just going to say, if anyone who's still at university, doesn't matter whether in your first year or in your last year, just consider university as the foundation of what you're going to be doing, in terms of learning. Like, university, the best thing that university teaches you is how to learn, not what you're learning specifically. Like, yes, you're learning some of the things that are specific to industries and whatever your stream of work is. But again, they're just foundation, right? As we evolve industry, as we evolve technology, these things will change. So what you're learning now, the biggest lessons you need to take away is not, oh, I wrote a paper on this and this was the content. Take
Yeah.
away the lessons that you learned around why you didn't achieve a great mark on that paper, or what were the lessons in terms of structure on that paper. Take away scientific method, like when you form a hypothesis and then you design an experiment, and then from that experiment you go and run that experiment and test it and get the results, analyze the results and go, that either aligned with my hypothesis or it didn't, and then go and rebuild another hypothesis based on the finding, right? That's the more important thing. It's your aptitude for learning that is the most important thing that will get you from, where I was when I first left school to where I am now more than 20 years later. Is I've never stopped learning, and I've never said, oh, now that I'm a senior in my industry, I'm at the top, so I've got nothing more to learn. Every step up the ladder I take is another lesson in, I have a foundation, but there's more to learn. And it even goes, even in my role now, it even goes to, yeah, I may be very adept at technology, but now a lot of the stuff that I'm learning is around business and the soft skills needed to work with executives and the C-suite, and that's a whole new learning, right? There's things in politics and bureaucracy and things that, hey, these things exist and they exist for a reason, so learn them. Don't just don't just fight against them. They're there for a
Exactly.
reason, so
Yeah.
learn to use them and learn to use them to your advantage. Everything that you do is just a foundation for the next thing that you're going to learn.
Absolutely. And more than that, Aaron, Vijay, you were just mentioning a point that, we don't, I mean, I'm not bothered like exactly like, how many people I'm just going to take, but what matters is how are we going to, excel to the business value? Like we need to satisfy what the business requires. So that
Yep.
was a key takeaway for me totally. When I just heard that thing, I was like, yeah, this is a point which has to be taken seriously for sure.
From a leadership point of view as well, as many of you, if you're doing your masters, right, you're probably going to go into more of a leadership role straight out of uni, not like a ground level graduate who's learning everything from scratch. Maybe a bachelor's will start there. Even I've seen bachelor students go into more senior roles depending on their studies, right? When you get into leadership, if you the sooner you learn to work with your team. So it's not about each individual climbing the ladder, because that's how most people approach industry. But if you realize very quickly that the more you build up the people around you and they raise you on their shoulders, right? If you're in a position of leadership, then it's not a top down thing. Like, I'm leading you, you follow me. It's a pull up thing, right? So it's the more I pull up the people around me, the higher I'll get. This is where I was talking before about, half of my job is building up my organization. That's what
Yeah.
I'm meaning. Like, if you want to succeed, especially in the tech world, it's not a single player game. It's a team game, and you've got to build up your team so that they hoist you up. The further they come up, the further you go up.
Totally, totally. It's a mutual thing, and that has to be the way, how, I mean, it has been followed. Yeah. So on this note, this is your host, Akhil Navluri, signing off. We will be back with another podcast episode with another eminent industry leader very soon. Till then, keep listening, stay tuned. Thank you, au revoir, and good day. Thank you.